Good evening, it is Matt Rogers. It is now the 27th of December 2024. Continuing the information about Planet X Nibiru and the discoveries. The phenomenon of the establishment is quick to point out that sometime in the past there was such a drought, such as a storm, such a warm day in the winter, or a cold day in the summer. They are in this seeking diminish. The reaction by the populace of weather has forgotten the extreme weather conditions. Within the memory of man of current theory is those of the periodic climate changes, the cycles, and one of those increasing earthquakes are also claimed to be periodic. The cycle with the ancient legends support the cycle theory. The improved reporting of the mechanisms imply quakes were not recorded properly in the past that would perturb the earth with such an almost like a heartbeat, except for this problem in the question is no issue. Since this map seeming to be aligned so very and also perfectly with a theory that no basis of reality whatsoever, data is being dreaded for the newly interpreted supporting this, with the reassurance of these times will pass as they have in the past, but nature does not have to cooperate with man's theories. This way the earth changes are not reducing, they are proceeding faster, and the models predicted we are basically looking now for the future climate, and that's beyond anything we've considered seriously in climate model simulations. Christopher Field, founding director of the Carnegie Institution's department in the Global Office in Stanford University, a 50-year-old study found that the world's mountain and polar glaciers are melting at a rapid pace, alarming rates faster than anyone predicted just a few years ago, and melting, accelerating. 2002, by 2015, snows of the mountains will disappear. By 2020, for sure. In 2005, the snows of the mountains do not exist anymore. Close to 85% of ice that is made up of mountains, glaciers, in 1912 were gone by 2007. Glaciers in these mountains are melting at a rate of 9 to 10 meters per year, having shrinked by 16% in the last 50 years. Around the North Pole, the ice cap has lost 40% of its surface in the last 30 years since 1979. This trend is projected to continue, leaving the Arctic completely ice-free during the summer of early 2030. However, significant decline in the extent of the Arctic Sea ice has become more rapid by the beginning of the 21st century, and particularly warmer summer in 2007. This unpredicted minimum of the summarized market melt of 20 years ahead of climate models in August of 2008. The North Pole has become an island for the first time in human history, making it possible to sail around the Arctic cap. It seemed unthinkable, but to the first time in human history, ice off the course to disappear entirely from the North Pole that year in 2008. Exclusive no ice at the North Pole is falling apart thousands of square miles in ice, polarized, and also the edge of breaking up into millions of icebergs. Melting of Greenland ice sheets also accelerating. The edges of the ice sheets are melting up to 10 times more rapidly than earlier research had anticipated. Ice mass loss accelerated in 2006. The years of 2006 to 2008, with their warm summers, have seen a huge melting. Antarctica's ice sheets are also melting faster. For anyone thought that the US and the British government researchers report in 2009. Warming of the West Antarctica. Antarctica in particular has been long known, but the east of Antarctica is thought to be quite different of a story, separated throughout Antarctic mountains ranges that is huge masses of ice, land, and it's thought the exempt from melting now. It looks like it's warming, also getting to the last stronghold of the ice east Antarctica. Ice reaching indicates half degree Celsius. Continued wide average temperatures increased of a decade of 1957 to 2006. A series of independent satellites measurements confirmed that Antarctica is losing ice mass and also accelerating rate. It is not also a trend ice loss, it's increasing over time. Recent decades have witnessed the dramatic collapse of major sections of the Antarctica ice shelves. The rate is also between 1995 and 2006. Antarctic ice sheets are rapidly declining, melting of Antarctica ice and becoming unstoppable. Those so-called experts haven't got the slightest clue of what is happening and why and what to do and expect next. It is unpredictable, not knowing because they can't never come up with a valid trend dynamics prediction. Of course, folks, they are guessing and speculating wildly, and eventually actual Earth changes quickly, 10 or even their suggestions into shreds, and a speed of scale. Global climate change in the last 2 decades have been beyond anything expected by scientists. That has been a puzzling, unable to give satisfactory explanations of those that we see of experts and scientists arguing endlessly while it's obvious that something is happening. What country anywhere in the world is reporting those reasons of climate changes? What country anywhere that is reporting and dealing with the rising sea, disappearing islands, melting poles, and higher tides? In the past, such occurrences would be big news now. Ignored the fact that this is unreported, a pretty telling, increasingly, and also public worldwide is expecting that the governments of their media are not telling them the truth. Media is chirping good news. All is about the change, the upswings just around the corner, and everyone is charging up with good expectations. Meanwhile, folks, the weathermen carefully criticize, admitting the number of records have been broken on a daily basis. Quake, and also the information kept in line of dropping earthquakes, the database underreporting, downgrading their magnitude. Glaciers and polar ice caps continue to melt. The rising sea levels was the news when it was first observed. It went into a cover-up mode quickly. Oceans continue to warm up and rise, islands disappearing under the waves in the Pacific. The economy fails. No good news. But, folks, chirping is done on the news about various predictions, and all will be well soon. The Australian fire zone declared a crime scene. Of course, they cannot tell the public that we're all having more heat waves and wildfires because of the increasing heat of the Earth's core. The search for the anonymous cases in these to blame on somebody else, something may think it is such of a planet that actually inbound would make worldwide news within a day. Why are the scientists of the worldwide media not trumpeting the truth? News organizations of the world find themselves under heavy press, governments, intelligent organizations. Most of the scientific studies indirectly or the government-funded research centers under government control. They fear that their jobs, their safety, and their safety on their families are at risk, being threatened by the establishment to avoid the subject of the plague. Don't yell fire on the crowded planet. Don't cause panic. NASA astronomer Dr. Robert Sutton Harrington, who used to be the head of the US Observatory, was killed because he was going through open in this topic in 1992. Harrington was the planner working for the information. They had published their findings and the opinion that there was indeed a 10th planet, calling it the intruder planet. Dr. Robert Harrington invited Zecharia Sitchin to a meeting in his office, and they corroborated the current findings that the ancient records. Harrington confirmed and reading Sitchin's research and agrees the existence of an orbit of the 12th planet. It was in the opinion of the researcher that in light of the evidence already obtained by the Pioneer 10 and Pioneer 11, two Voyager spacecraft in infrared image satellite 1983-1984, the data available to him, Sitchin, that in fact search had already been accomplished, that the planet had already been found. He dispatched the appropriate telescope in New Zealand to get a visual confirmation. The scope was immediately called back, and Dr. Harrington's sudden death of an accident in 1993. He may have been the first but not the last astronomer, and NASA and various government employees are required to sign the national security off, going hidden with the information. Black suits warned them to keep their mouths shut, never to talk about it. Doubts and something like approaching a giant planet about to wreak havoc to Earth and its hapless inhabitations. The hidden public, you should know the example of the Chernobyl disaster, the story of the accident of Chernobyl nuclear power plant, Ukrainian Republic, the USSR on April the 26th, 1986 is considered the worst nuclear plant accident in history. 400 times more radioactive material was released than the atomic bombing of the Hiroshima, and the initial explosion in the research produced by the dust drifted over the plants and parts of the Eastern Europe, Scandinavia, the large areas of Ukraine and Russia, resulting in the evacuations, the resettlements of more than 200,000 people. The 30-kilometer zone set around the nuclear power station, inhabitable areas now restricted to this day, buried up heavy machinery, hundreds of small population centers. Authorities initially tried to conceal the scale of the disaster. Officials recently acknowledged what happened a few days after the accident following reports from Sweden. The first official report contained little information and gave a false allegation. Folks, if you think about this in detail, there's been a lot of cover-ups from a lot of years, and people are starting to wake up now to the absolute truth. There's something else could be causing of these cover-ups, of these strange occurrences, to try and divert the public from seeing the truth from Planet X, Nibiru, Wormwood, an orbiting mini solar system, the binary star nemesis to our sun. A lot of people have sadly passed away because of changes, because of disasters, to cover up and divert the truth to billions across the world. In the aftermath of this accident, 237 people suffered from huge radiation sickness, of whom 31 died within the first 3 months. Most of these were fire and rescue workers that sent out the accident's under control rescue. Workers who did the initial cleanup were not fully informed how dangerous exposure was to the radiation, and they were ordered to not put on protective suits, even masks, in order to cause panic. Especially increased cases of thyroid conditions in children and adults. Subsequently, years have been attributed to radioactive contamination. All it's about, folks, is the shadow government, the powers that were, is to try and stop panic, trying to cause other damage. They don't care about humanity. All they want to do is to stop you from knowing the truth about Planet X. Will this happen in our lifetimes? Are they covering up Planet X, Wormwood Star, that is spoken about in the Bible? Many researchers, again, like Dr. Robert Sutton Harrington, has sadly lost his life, with his co-workers that lost their lives too. A lot of things have gone off, folks, in our world. Even when we put on the media and we start to notice something else has gone off, something else is happening. Is the shadow government, the powers that were, becoming very worried about the catastrophic events? Researchers at RAND Corporation at the American Association for the Advancement of Science meeting in Denver in 2003, it also of the conspiracy fact rather than a theory. This is what they say, folks. Where does this leave the common man? What the common man hears in the evening news is what is allowed to know, creates a comfortable illusion. For him, it is not the news, then it's not real. Earth changes. Nothing to worry about. This is what they want you to think. The Earth's natural cycles. Just ask an expert, folks, and they'll explain it to you. Everything is normal, nothing to see. Those doomsday alarmists, a better focus on the agenda. It also explains as well the amateur findings, the astonishments since emitting by the experts. He also explains these people, it's silent, thinking the wrong, that finds something is amiss. The pressure to see what others are seeing is intense. Everyone in the group apparently not seeing what you are seeing, then you are doubt. You're in doubt with your eyes. If you can't see it, there's nothing to worry about. The professionals address the issue. They find themselves incompetent and ridiculed. Certainly taking the issue to the media gains nothing. Proof lies between your eyes, and has for years. Trust your own instincts. Take a look towards the heavens. Everything that's been spoken about could be absolutely truth. Of course, for those wishing med is not for so of amount of proof will ever be enough. What happens to Planet X discovered IRAS in 1983, where the newspaper announces and suddenly not a word was sent for decades. Those 4 times as large as Earth and its arrival, Planet X appears smaller than Pluto and much less right, being a greater distance and not reflecting sunlight. It is a dim, distant star, reddish and faint magnitude, barely visible even though a telescope, and only in infrared at first. The naked eye will not see this 12th planet until the year of the cataclysms, just a few weeks ahead. Those rather than look for a moving object which will surely become visible and traceable in the year of the shift, looking for changes. Weather changes are going to tell you more than anything else about what is approaching. These are indications to you as surely as the heating of the oceans from the bottom and the disturbances, the magnitude of the disturbance core, that something is very close that should alert you, and you should soon enough see the surroundings of the skies. The asteroid is no more likely to bash into Earth than other false alarmists announced recently. A man has no way of proving that by displaying such earth-threatening disasters. The survival situations of the populace is being asked to consider the dire simulations and have a likelihood to accept those false stories, set many of you thinking, what if the conjunction of the warnings and some hypothetical aliens from the Zeta areas, the creation tendencies, prepare for an escape alternative lifestyle, handy rather than wait for the time to arrive for those that would sculpt public attitude of those matters, have started placing such scenarios into the public consequences of the populace being manipulated in many ways to become more self-relevant and faster move to the direction of more of honest governments can be with them governments of the world. Not have a solution of those people cannot see them. See, the fear announced were made, looting, riots would break out, and stress conclude that this is the worst than silence until the last week. But if you cause by preparing these gardens and also preparing to accept bad news, those good-hearted in the government who would want to warn people that they can see the fourth being, and also giving warnings to the public, the passage of knowing the inner circle, at least 60-year plans were laid for decades into the future, the anticipation of what is to come and what their actions will be when the end of the world at hand. Given the failure of the visible escape plans, the diversion destruction, a plan causing the scenarios remain top during the survival of the rule, the world of kings after the cataclysm. The options most pressed by the elites right now is setting up the gardens of survivals. These survival sites, creating a surface culture around them by some sort of information that's pulled out of supplies. Those on top of the establishment are on top now and want to remain there until the very end, retaining their comfortable living, the high societies, the status. They won the status quo and continue the society continue as before, functioning the common man with his job, paying bills, trusting their governments, respecting the police-fearing system, the court system, as long as possible. They also establish angry demand mobs arriving or crowded the roads and blocking their escape to the well-stocked through the gardens of survivals. They would have the status emergency declared in the nation, striking the continuous natural disasters in the days predicted by the cataclysm. This would imply posing travel restrictions, installing roadblocks, posts and ordering citizens to shelter in places while the military and the local police would circle the cities, preventing escape of the people, the public. A strong worker based those skilled and healthy enough would become a slave labour and work in camps and plan to set up the aftertime. the age of the very young, all those that consider for the workers or useless eaters, it's sometimes termed, will be established or left to die. Previously, this reaction of the establishment has caused us to be so very noisy about the pole shift. We have chosen to speak out, but they warned the people not to. Folks, think about this. At the moment, we're living in very difficult times. And if you think about it now, more and more people are becoming much more aware of our surroundings. People, again, they don't want to come out of their comfort zones. But it's about time now. You need to think out the box. It should be given the option. They had the right to know, and they will, and also do something about it. For all of us, overall, it's more considerate to inform those of the change, of the cover-up, but they will still try and hide the truth with lies. The shift described is happening shortly after May the 15th. They explained way back in 2003. The Zetas explain how the 2003 date and the date alone deliberately confused issues of those Zeta talk, explaining the rule of the world and the rooms planned, the US government being used, the military in the world combined to control the world populations. See, when it's clear that the end times are upon mankind, those in control in the US government would send troops to take over the world, swiftly installing a global dictatorship, martial law, a global scale under the US military. The announcement date of passing around 15th of those years are clearly watched by those in power at the White House. The Iraq invasion was clearly scheduled to occur, going through the announcement in 2003 date of passage. Frantic efforts by the administration to gain international support and to proceed even when it failed. Folks clearly showed that this was their plan from the beginning. So thank you indeed for watching this short video just to explain what is being done or what could be done by the government. Please look out for the next video, and please all of you take care. Subscribe to this channel. From Matt Rogers.